talking about Macho Man. I don't have our opener going. Oh,
don't buy any unripe bananas.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the I Tap That Cigar Show, presented by Corona Cigar. I'm your host, Kevin from Cigar Prop, and I'm coming to you live from the Drew Estate Experience Asset Studios here on the sunny Gulf Coast of Florida. Joining me, as always, is my co-host, Kerr Viajante of Stogie Road Cigars.
What's up, Kev? How are you, man?
I'm tired.
Yeah.
Long weekend. Got the we were talking before the show, got the lounge floors done, and then it's just gonna be a busy week. My neighbor's minivan got towed in today, back at their house. So I had to go over there and be nosy because I'm a mechanic, hoping it was like a flat tire or something. Ends up being an alternator, and I'm looking at it. I'm like, I know he's gonna ask. I'm just like, I got some time Wednesday night. Can we come over and do this? How much? They're elderly. How much? How much you think? I go, I'm not going to charge you. I go, we're neighbors. That's what we do.
You're doing God's work, Kevin. Very nice.
I'm like, they're all my neighbors are old. They're retired. So, I mean, we can go away for a month. Nobody's getting into our house without, Agnes, peeking through her things, calling 911 if someone even stops in front of our house, and looks. So, yeah, it's the least I can do is throw an alternator in a minivan.
That's how you, instead of getting a security, you just got to do some mechanic work every once in a while. That's actually probably more efficient than ADP.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. So, well, also joining us in the background is producer Jessica. Jessica, say hello to everybody for tonight. Hello. She's had a long day.
Jessica, I wanted to say real quick, Kevin, before you continue, happy belated Mother's Day.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that.
Did you have a good day?
We worked on the lounge.
Yeah, we worked on the lounge. So, so we got the.
Look at that.
I started a new job, and my other job is to serve Kevin's crazy whims.
That's it.
Kill myself even on Mother's Day.
But you're preparing that lounge. That is like the queen who is preparing her own castle.
That's it.
That's your own throne room.
Yeah, now I won't even be able to enjoy it.
Yeah. So so
I can't help you on that one.
That's it. I made her work on Mother's Day. So, but it's coming along nice. We got the spray foam guys coming out to do the new workshop on Thursday.
Yeah,
that'll be nice. So that's coming along as well.
Gosh, you got dueling projects.
I know. Got the new workshop and the cigar lounge on the house, and it's just everything will be wrapped up this year. We're for 2 years in the making. We've been working on all this, so it's going to be done 2023. We got this in the books, and next project will be something else.
Which one took longer, the vice versa or the lounge?
The vice versa with Fratello that we did. Yeah, that was almost 3 years to get that cigar made. And that was crazy. So yeah.
Available at trashpan.com and
VSRcigarfans.com. So yeah.
No, I mean, I was wondering because I know you've been working on that for a while. With this lounge, I know it's been quite a bit. So
it's been crazy. Yeah, the whole Trash Panda thing, and Ian doesn't know it, but I need some insight on this whole cigar business thing. If it's he's been doing it for a while, and it's just like, is he tired yet? I don't care. You're tired. It's like, what did I get myself into? Yeah.
What, are you saying I'm not a good reference?
Jessica. Yeah, you are. We talk all the time, though.
Jessica, throw up the tickers, damn it.
I think you sugarcoat it for me sometimes. You know, like,
I don't sugarcoat shit.
This is great. You know how much money I make? You know,
words you've never heard from me. You fucking liar.
All right. Well, we all needed a cigar over here, so let's get right to the CigarMedics humidimeter cut and light. Remember, with the CigarMedics humidimeter, you'll always know when to hold them and know when to smoke them. Jessica, did you decide to go with one of these brick houses?
Oh, I sure did. After you said
I forgot to get hers. So Jessica and I are enjoying the new brick house from our sponsor, JC Newman, the new brick house Crystal Churchill. Kerr, you had one of these before we even got them. So beautiful. They come in the glass tubes.
I haven't had one yet. Wait, did I have one of those yet?
Did you? I couldn't remember. We sent you some cigar. They sent us.
I don't think I've smoked them yet.
All right. So it's got the plastic thing.
What is your cigar at there, Kerr?
Oh, what am I smoking? Thanks for asking.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm trying to get the child proofing off this tube.
I'll just take over for a minute.
Yeah.
That's right. I'm smoking the Kerr Berger anniversary AJ Fernandez, and it's at 65% humidity using my humidimeter.
All right. Yeah, I got the Don Kiki, this little Figurado as my second cigar. So thank you, Karen Berger. And I am at with my CigarMedics humidimeter. Ooh, I'm a little moist, Kerr. 74%. Them glass tubes hold in that moisture.
You might want to cut that, let that sit, and go with that Don Kiki first.
Yeah, I think. I'm
actually smoking the Sandela first right now.
All right, I think I'm gonna wing it, and then we're gonna see what happens here. 74 is a little moist. So, but it's a brick house.
That's a moist brick house.
I'll tell you right now, this is a long smoke. I found it to be too long for my liking.
It is a big.
You don't sit like that, just relax and smoke.
No,
it is a big cigar.
But I just the day that I smoked it, I was like, oh, I don't.
Yeah, but
it's prepared for how long this cigar.
What's the cigar propometer say?
It's 7x48, so it's not. It's got some length, but it doesn't have the girth, so it's probably not.
I normally don't choose this.
Girth matters.
Guys. Yeah,
we all know that.
I was gonna smoke the other one they sent me, the new Unico or something. It's like 8.5x52.
Oof.
Ooh, that's a beast.
That's a beast, yeah.
It's a
beast.
Shit. So, all right.
Yes, Kevin. Yes.
So, as usual, every week we talk about Boston Jimmy climbing Mount Fuji to find a cure for climbing Mount Fuji for autism.
What the heck is going on?
I did not mean to imply we need to find a cure for autism, but to
raise money and awareness
for autism support. Thank you, Kerr. That's why we have Kerr. That's why we keep him around. So I get the Kerr. We got the fingers going. Let's wrap it up. There's a link in the video description below. Boston Jimmy will be joining us next week on the show to tell us a little bit more about his climb for awareness. So before we bring on our guest tonight, we want to take a moment to thank all of our show partners for making this show happen each and every week. Thank you, JC Newman Cigars, CigarMedics, Amendola Cigars, We Are the Muscle, Jake Wyatt Cigars, Illusione Cigars, deep in flavor, deep in your mind. Kate by Karen Berger Cigars, Corona Cigar, and of course, True Estate and Experience Acid. All right, so waiting patiently in the Experience Acid Green Room is a man that you may not know, Ian Reith, but I guarantee you know his cigars, which is Dapper Cigars. Ian, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. You can hear me all right?
Yeah, we can hear you just fine. So we've been trying to get you on. I looked it up, October 2021. We've been trying to get you on the show since October of 2021. So it just hasn't worked out.
It happened.
We've actually had a run of like the last like 3 or 4 guests. It's been one of these like a year or two trying to get, you know, they got a time, we don't have a time. We have a time, they don't have a time, and it's just it's crazy. So
well, all good things come to those who wait, right? So
that's what they say.
I'm all right.
I am impatient, you know. I'm thankful for Amazon, you know. So that's the world.
Can't rush the hands of time, right? That's another one. Oh.
Yeah, you can try, but and they do in the cigar industry. Some people are trying to rush the hands of time, and those we see those cigars and those companies go by the wayside, you know, pretty often.
Patience.
So where are you coming from tonight? What is that building you're in?
So we're in the office here at Dapper Cigar Company. We're in Fresno, California. So we moved into a new office middle of last year, and we kind of outgrew. We had a very small office before that was real minimal, and we kind of outgrew the humidified area. So we expanded our humidors, and so that's where I'm at right now in Fresno, California, Central California. So.
Oh, so yeah, I was trying to read the sign behind you. I couldn't tell if it said Dapper or Dr. Pepper because it's like it's so far away. I'm like, what is this? Is that Dapper?
Gas Kev.
Yeah. Our neon sign probably. Yeah, it's got a little blurry. I think it's an LED neon. So, or it's an LED neon. And what's interesting about it, I just found this out. We did a bunch of promo videos, and I guess the way that LEDs shoot with videos, it looks really weird. Like the way that the video cameras capture LEDs, it's almost like they blur and they. I can't explain it, but it's something to do with the cameras and how LEDs go.
So I was looking into that too because like I don't know if you heard like in the back room there, we're building a cigar lounge onto our house. That'll be our new film studio. Mm-hmm. You know, we'll have a big bar, but we'll have a TV. Same thing with TVs, filming TVs. Same with LEDs. Right. I learned you got to get all your settings just right so they like flicker at the same rate. So
exactly,
it's crazy. Yeah. So, but yeah,
I just learned this. I didn't know about that, but that's probably why it's all weird looking.
I didn't know about that either until I was looking. I'm like, hey, you know, I should make sure how to film a TV. Then I saw the same thing with LEDs and. You know, unless you have them diffused, and it's just a whole big.
Yeah,
that's it. It's a thing. I don't know. So I as we were talking like before the show, like I said, I don't know any. The only thing here's what I know about you from your Facebook page. You're from Biloxi, Mississippi, and you're some kind of tech guy. Let's start with Biloxi. How'd the family get to? Is that where you're born, raised, grew up?
No, I was born in Seoul, South Korea, but my father was in the service. He was in the Air Force. And so I spent my childhood kind of bouncing everywhere. And Biloxi is just kind of the place where I spent the majority of my maybe, formative years, as they may say. I don't know what formative, but, from middle school right into about high school. And then I ended up moving out to California in the Vacaville, Fairfield area. There's a Air Force base out there. And, I basically was all over. We've lived in Anchorage, Alaska, Michigan, and South Carolina. I was in Florida for a while, Panama City Beach, Florida. There's a military base down there. San Antonio, Texas. We've lived everywhere, but Biloxi's kind of the place where I spent the majority of my time. So whenever it asks where you're from, I just say, well, Biloxi. I should probably change it to California now. That could be bad, though, nowadays.
Yeah, for sure. So you never thought about going into the military? Follow the old man's footsteps?
I did. Yeah, I actually had really thought about that. Yeah, I did, except I think my dad was like, I think we've done enough. He's like, you should try something, tried doing something different. Basically all of my family's all military. Everybody's in either the Army, the Navy, the Marine Corps. I mean, whatever it be, everybody's kind of done a stint in the military, or they've done their entire career in the military. So I think I probably am one of the few that haven't gone into service, but I entertained it. I really wanted to go, but didn't work out. Got married, had kids. They probably don't need me anyways. I would only provide, technical support. I wouldn't.
Oh yeah, like I said, our son's in the Army. He provides the technical supports. They need those guys. Need those guys too.
Yeah.
But, yeah, but yeah, it's like the Robert Holt. His family, Southern drawl. Like everybody's in the military. It's like how do you not go in and just not disappoint somebody? So
yeah. No, you're right. You're right. I wish I would have done it. If I could go back in time and do at least 4 years, I wish I would have done it. That's probably one of the maybe regrets I had in life. Yeah.
Yeah. Which branch would you would you have tried?
I don't know. I'm pretty ambivalent. I mean, I kind of have family members in all the branches. I probably would have stayed away from Navy just based on some experiences from what I've heard from some of my uncles, but. I'm pretty ambivalent about which one I would have went into. Maybe whichever one would have sent me to the best spot.
Yeah, I see. Me, I want to be on submarine. That'd have been my gig. I'd want to be a sub guy. That's
there's a lot of sub guys in the cigar business.
Are there?
Saka was a sub guy. Yeah, I think Saka was a sub guy, and
sub guy. I think Skip was a sub guy. I don't know because Saka did serve on a destroyer, so I think I don't know if he ever did time on a sub though. He's kind of a big guy. I don't know if he was big back then. He's but
a little tight for sub.
Yeah, yeah. That's what my gig would have been. What about you, Kerr? Which one would you have chosen?
Actually, I wanted to go in the military. I was very much into the whole military thing growing up. My dad was in the Air Force. I had uncles, and both my cousins served in the Army. So I think I probably would have gone in the Army. Yeah, I had a number of friends who were Marines, but I always wanted to go into the Army growing up. And then I started playing football and realized I wanted to play in college and do that instead.
Yeah, I was 1 point away from going in to be an independent contractor because I did my FISA with the government and I failed by 1 point. So 1 point. It was right after I'd gotten divorced. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna go over to the Middle East and do some security. Yeah, that was yeah, I know that. Dangerous. Yeah, that's how that was my mindset then. I'm like, yeah, this is probably not that bad. Yeah, it was. Yeah, we saw how that turned out. So that's it. So let's start off your cigar smoking journey. Where your typical question on all these shows? Where was your first cigar? Do you remember what it was? But do you come from also a cigar smoking family?
Yeah, I mean, my dad smoked cigars, and so he didn't smoke very nice cigars. He smoked pretty cheap cigars. Actually, he would buy these really cheap bundles from JR Cigars and Mike Cigars back in the day. He'd send them to my house. He'd send them to the house and he'd intercept the packages so my mom wouldn't find out. And he had one of those igloo coolers in the storage shed, and that's where he put the cigars in there. And I remember there's always he'd use a sponge. It'd be like a sponge in a Tupperware thing, and you'd have holes in the Tupperware top. And it was like a kitchen sponge,
Yeah.
And I was like, this is before Bovedas or any nice humidification. And none of his cigars had any bands on them. And I remember he would always give me some crazy story about, where these came from, or, they were, Macanudo seconds or whatever it was. I'm sure it was all. BS.
We've all seen the Macanudo seconds. Yep.
Yeah. But he always had a great story about it. I think he used to read those Lou Rothman, newsletters that came out in the day when they were in the mail, and he'd read the stories. And and he would recite some of these things back, and he'd pour himself a healthy amount of scotch, and he'd sit out in the backyard and smoke the cheap cigars, and was living high, and that's I grew up with him smoking. It's probably a big reason why I got in the cigar business, is just not only because of the influence, but I just wanted my dad to have better cigars. But no, I was just joking. Kidding.
Well, I mean, you talk with Saka. He could never get his father-in-law to smoke anything but cheap cigars. So he would call over to Hoya, whatever it was when he was getting low, and they would make a couple hundred of these bundled cheap cigars just for his dad. His dad has literally everything he could to smoke. But I grew up, my dad smoking cheap cigars as well.
Until the one time he said his father-in-law.
Oh, he smoked a box of Cubans, an $11,000 box of Cubans while Steve was on vacation. So he went from cheap cigars to smoking $2 Hoya, bundle, 12 or 11 or $12,000 box of Cubans. Smoked the entire thing. Didn't even leave Steve one.
That's hilarious. That's hilarious. Well, I will say, when I first had a blend, over 10 years ago, that I was, thinking about coming out with a cigar company and stuff, and I gave him, one of the cigars. It was a Connecticut Shade Cubo Claro. We didn't make it anymore, and I gave it to him, and he smoked it, and he was like, "Ian, this is literally the best cigar I've ever smoked." Now, normally you would go, "Well, he's just being nice," but I knew what he was smoking, and that was probably the best cigar he'd ever smoked.
Yeah. Like, I appreciate your opinion, Dad, but I'm gonna have to have a couple other guys try this. The
bar's a little low.
Yeah, the bar is way low there. So let's start. Oh, go ahead.
So we do make a product. So we started a couple of years making a product called Major Mike's, which is named after my father, and it is our bundle cigar. And it's I mean, that's a direct. That's a direct influence of him smoking those cheap cigars. We made we're figuring out how to come out with an economy cigar that was a bundled cigar. I was like, it's got to be Major Mike's, and so there you go.
That's great.
And so that's basically after him, and ironically, that cigar is crushing it for us. We don't make a lot of money at all on that cigar, but it is. It always gets it always gives me kind of like a nice feeling about it, just because I know there's a lot of people like my dad that they were on very, very fixed incomes. They were they didn't make a whole lot of money in the military, and being able to enjoy a great cigar at a great price, I thought was I still think is it's worth doing.
Yeah, I'm going to pick up a bundle of those of the Army Major Mikes, because at our local lounge we have a Major Mike. He's a major in the local sheriff's department, and then he was in the Army. So as soon as I saw that and I was doing some research on you, I'm like, oh my God, I got to get Major Mike a bundle of those cigars. He's more of a Padron guy, so he'll probably smoke them, but they may just be sitting around, So but
that's a tough customer to convert to the bundle.
Yeah, it definitely is. If I share them with everybody, so where were you?
Bad thing is, if he likes those.
Yeah,
that retailer will never buy our cigars again.
Yeah.
Oh, if you convert the Padron smoker to that cigar.
Oh God, yeah. That's like never let Dapper Cigars in here ever.
Yeah, we're not selling any of these anymore.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Mike hasn't bought a Padron in a month. So where were you at in life? When you decided. I am going to start a cigar company. Where were you in your career and just in life in general?
Yeah. So, I mean, my background is tech. So I've spent, that's basically what I grew up sort of doing. I've been fortunate to work in that business because it's been a bit of a, it's something that's pretty in need. And so, I was in my mid-20s and I was working quite a bit, and I really wasn't a cigar smoker. Every once in a while somebody would have a cigar for a wedding or occasion like that, and I'd smoke a cigar. But my best buddy Red reached out to me one day and he's like, man, we ought to go have a cigar at a lounge, just sit down and actually have a cigar. And I was working so much, and I was a little bit stressed, and I was like, yeah, that sounds great. And I was just hooked. We ended up going to it was either Perfect Blend or LTD here in Fresno, California, and I think I remember the first one I smoked. It was a Preferido. It was a La Aurora Preferido, one of those.
Yeah.
Those tubos, you know, with the
I've got
silver tubos.
Yeah, I've got like a half a dozen. Green, you know, they go up in price depending on the color. Yeah.
So I smoked one of those, and I think the cigar tasted way better than it really was, because it was just so relaxing. Like, just being, you know, I don't want to take away from the quality of that cigar, but I just remember being so enthralled to be able to just relax and hang out with some people and bullshit and just spend a couple hours not thinking about anything, but, you know, kind of enjoying friendship and kind of, you know, talking with people that I don't normally get to talk with from all different, you know, walks of life. And so I was hooked, and I got really heavy into it. At that time, you know, it was, I remember the big brands that were kind of crushing it. It was like CAO, you know, CAO was, you know, a monster. They were giving away motorcycles and, you know, it's crazy boxes and stories. And, you know, I was smoking everything I could possibly smoke, going to every event I could possibly go to. I was spending way too much money on, you know, cigars at that time, you know, and just got hooked. And yeah, I think after a few years of doing that, 2 or 3 years, I just kind of thought, yeah, it'd be kind of cool if I just made a cigar, you know, figure out, make one cigar. And that's just kind of got me down into it. And I've been doing that a little bit ever since. And it's been a long time that we've been doing it. And maybe about, I don't know, gosh, probably over 10 years now. It's really only been the last maybe 4 or 5 years that we've kind of gotten out of California and into retailers all over the place. And but for the first 5 years, it's a pretty lonely road when you're making cigars. It's a difficult business, and there's just not a lot of, especially on the West Coast, like starting a cigar company in Northern California is like, that's just a dumb idea. I mean, I get people asking me all the time. I'm like, do not do it, man. Just like go somewhere different, and, you know, try not to operate out of this area. There's just not enough density of cigar smokers to make it worthwhile, I think, you know.
Yeah,
so,
you know,
your stupidity.
Yeah, we talk about it all the time on the show. You know, you'll get guys that, you know, like I said, you know, you spent 5 years. You know, Kerr, you've been doing this for what, about 5 years? Your cigar company? 4. Yeah. You know, it's you know, and it's the grind. It's the grind. You know, making those little improvements and keep, you know, and then you see the guys that, you know, and great guys. They've been in a year, and they just hit that one cigar at that one lounge at that one time, and then now they're in 500 lounges and they explode. It's just like, you know, it's so, Kerr and we talk about it all the time. It's just mind-boggling, you know, how just one thing can just, you know, it's like that video that goes viral. It just happens to hit at the same time. Yep. You know, and then I'll be like, you know, I'm looking at that going, God, you got all these guys that are just grinding it, you know, making fantastic cigars. And it's like, how do I, you know, help spread the word of these guys? And, you know, but yeah, it's crazy. What'd your wife say? You come home one day, we'll start a cigar company.
I think she was skeptical but supportive. I think that would maintain her position today as well. Skeptical but supportive.
10 years later, still skeptical, but
yeah. Well, you know, it's a very difficult business, right? I mean, you're talking about, you guys know, it's you know, to get your brand out there, to get people to even smoke one of your cigars. I mean, when you go into a humidor, you're filled with legacy brands. You're filled with a lot of big companies, a lot of big money behind a lot of these brands. You know, it's tough. It's tough to get a person to try a cigar when there's thousands of really good cigars out there. And it's hard to get retail store owners to bring in a cigar that they feel like they may not be able to sell, they have to put a little bit more effort into trying to hand sell those items. I mean, it's a very difficult business. It takes a very long time. And we're still, if I would have thought back 5 years ago and think about how many cigars we sell today, but it was like, get out of here. It's not possible. So that's a good thing. But also, as I look at it, I'm like, we got to sell more cigars. We got to get to the next plateau. We've got to get to the next, level. And that's so difficult. It's like you're climbing a mountain backwards with weights on you,
And the mountain keeps getting taller. It's never ending. Right. It's crazy, and you go back to it's hard to get retailers to stock you, and it's hard to get guys and gals to smoke your new cigars as well. For me personally, I'm tired of being burned by some of these boutiques. I'll go, Jessica, we travel, we always go in. She's always, what do you got unique to the shop? What do you got boutique? For me, it's, I over the last couple of years, it's like, we've got this so-and-so cigar. And after trying like 100 of them and having construction issue, burn issues, it's just like, I just pissed away 2 hours of my time. Now I just go in, I'm like, give me a Dunbarton, give me a Drew Estate, or give me a boutique from a company that I know, that I know personally, and I have no problem with that. And it's like, here's a new company, and it's like, I don't know anything about them. Like you go and they don't even have a website, and it's just like, how am I going to find you? Kerr, we've got friends, we've interviewed people that, been doing this for 4 or 5 years, and they don't have a website yet, and it's just like, how do I try? I don't know. It's just, you say just.
I can't believe Jessica hasn't rubbed off on you yet with that. You're still that reluctant.
It drives me insane.
I have no problem. Like I said, we get boutique cigar companies reaching out because of media on Instagram, Twitter, and all that, and I have no problems. I was like, hey, we'd love to have you try our cigars. Maybe just take a photo with it. I'm like, I don't have a problem with that. And I told myself, if you don't ever see the photo, I go, it's probably because I didn't like it. And I would say probably about half of them, it's just not good. There's a lot of boutique guys. I don't want to be the guy that says it. There's a lot of boutique guys out there
that's your your experience. Like I can smoke the same cigar and not get that.
And it's not a flavor issue. It's generally a construction if it falls apart. So it is tough.
But no offense. In all fairness, if we're gonna say that, I could say that about a lot of big cigar company manufacturers where I've had a lot of issues. Burn issues.
I will.
Construction.
I will agree. Ian, will you agree that 2022 and 2023 has been a bad year for some from the legacy brands?
Yeah, I think what ended up. I'll obviously these are my opinions. I don't know the entire market in general, but I know during COVID, the demand was so high for cigars that there was a lot of rushing to meet the market, and so I think the general quality of cigars probably for most people went down because people were trying to just get the cigars into the country and get them sold. And before that, the biggest thing for boutiques, I think, was this looming FDA stuff. I know that was a huge thing for us. It was right when we started to get a little bit of traction. We came out with El Borracho, we came out with La Patrina, and it was like, it's over, fellas. FDA's coming in. You're going to have to hire attorneys, which we did. You're going to have to do brand registrations. You're going to have to file ingredient stuff. You're going to do packaging stuff. And it's funny because during those couple of years, there were not a lot of new boutique companies, I think. A lot of people kind of fell off. And then all of a sudden, after the FDA stuff waned down, and after the boom of the COVID cigar, boom, all of a sudden you see tons and tons of boutique companies again, and there's so many of them. And I wish them all luck. I wish everybody luck in the cigar business. But I think it's the quality's tough, and we everybody faces the same thing. They're handmade items, and whenever you have whenever you spend $15 on a handmade item and it burns weird or caves or has a construction fault or whatever, you're going to hear about it for sure. And you try to keep that down to a minimum, but it's difficult. We used to make cigars at a very small factory. We moved to a much larger factory, and part of the reason for that is the consistency of product. Being able to tap into large reserves of tobacco. You know, if you're making a run of cigars for a brand, and you know, the consumer expects that when they pick up that cigar 6 months from now, that it's similarly constructed and similarly tasting. You know, it takes that factory a lot of inventory and a lot of production capacity to keep that consistency from batch to batch. And so I think for smaller brands that are making in smaller cigar factories, I think it's going to be very, very difficult to do that. You know, so I think that causes a lot of cigars to be very inconsistent. You know,
inconsistent, and the pricing, you know, is a lot higher. You know, when I look at some of these, you know, cigar companies, you know, like these boutiques, you know, you get a guy or gal coming out with a brand new brand, and like their debut cigar, you know, is $18, $17, and it's just like, whew, then you look and they're all coming from these smaller factories. I'm like, are they, you know? But then again, you know how it is. You know, you can't order 10,000 when you're starting out, 15,000 cigars when you only order 1,000 cigars, and it's tough. Right. It's tough to get that consumer. It's like, hey, I got this brand new boutique cigar. You know, it's $15, $16, $17, and they're like, I can smoke a Padron for less than $15. You know, so
right. It is funny that you say that, because when we first started, you know, we had a price point of kind of about that $8 to $10 realm without tobacco taxes and whatnot. And every shop that I would visit, people were like, "You got to lower your prices." People got to lower your prices. Like it was like you're not going to be able to sell a cigar unless you lower your prices. I'm like, there's nothing to lower. Like, I mean, if I lower them, we're just giving them to you, right? I'm working for you. And so now we finally, only in the last couple of years, people have told us, you got to raise your prices. You got to raise your prices. Like, and we have a little bit, bit by bit and whatnot. But there's so much now that's being sold on the high end for boutiques. Cigars that are in the over $18, over $20 realm. And they're brand new companies that I think there's some expectation that, you know, that there's a certain market out there for that price cigar. For myself, I mean, I you know, we've never done anything that expensive because I've never felt like we've made anything to warrant that price, a $30 cigar or something like that. Doesn't mean we won't be there, because I mean, trust me, I'd love to be able to make those cigars, and there's plans to make a very ultra premium cigar, but I've always felt like the market for, you know, maybe this is just me kind of in my cigar experience going through cigars. You know, when I started smoking, you know, Tatuaje, Illusione, these were like the people I was looking up to these are the boutique heroes, right? These are the guys that you should follow what they're doing. Yeah. And they never made, you know, $30 cigar. You know, Pete never made it. Not that I know of, but I never saw a brown label as $30 right out the get-go. You know, and so that's always been my mindset, is that if you're, you know, you got to put in some time and make some great cigars consistently over time, and that'll give you the permission, or that'll give you the capacity to charge $30 one day after you've built that reputation and built up that prestige.
You know? Yeah, I mean, there was a guy at PCA last year, and he's a cigar. He makes for other people, but he had his first shop release. You know, released at a PCA, one cigar, $35 a cigar. What? Who's buying this? You know, it's just that's insane. But I find that $10 to $12 price point, for me, I don't even question buying it. So anything above, you get like $13, $14, then I ask why. Why is that cigar, you know, which isn't that expensive, but it still is. And then same on the other end, if you get like a $7 cigar, why is that so cheap? You know, so yeah, you know, so you got both sides of the coin there.
I will say this: the one trend that I've seen the last 2 years is there's been a real for what's considered boutique cigar companies, there's been a real effort to go away from what we consider like core line products to limited editions. And, and again, going through my experience in cigars and looking at companies like Tatuaje and Illusione and things, the model was always to build up like these core lines, to build up Tatuaje Brown Label, build up, the Illusione Epernay series or something, by, consistently making a brand that you can count on, that you can go in and always get that same high quality product. I don't see that as much anymore. I kind of see that now with the boutique thing. It's like make 5,000 cigars or make 2,000 cigars and charge a hefty premium for that, and then you're out. And then that leaves people wanting that cigar. There's nothing wrong with that business model at all. It's just something that I just don't. I didn't get going through my experience buying cigars and being a consumer and being a boutique cigar guy in terms of who I was looking at as like my role models per se.
Ian, that's interesting you bring that up, because I have a question for you. I know what I think about that limited release. Like you said, 5,000 done, 1,000, 2,000. Why do you think that is? Why do you think that is occurring now on a more frequent basis?
I think it comes down to the retailer, and the old idea was that if you got your product into a retailer and that product moved consistently, that they would continue to order that product and stock it on a shelf like it was Coca-Cola, right? You love, you got this product, like consumers love it. It's in the same spot in the humidor. And every time a box gets about halfway down, hey, let me order a couple more boxes. I think what's happened is that maybe there's so many brands out there and there's so many cigars out there that when a retailer doesn't keep up or they don't treat that product that way, it's easier for a retailer to go, hey, look, I'm going to bring in this brand like once a quarter every year. I'm going to put it in the front of the store and get it while you can. Mm-hmm. And it creates a little bit of scarcity in the consumer mind. Maybe the consumer's like, oh man, I remember that cigar. That's great. And they sell through it. And that's your kind of time in the sun for that retailer. And then you won't see until next year at that quarter. And then they stack up enough products that way so that the consumers that go into the cigar shops always have something what's new, so the guy that walks in, hey, what's new? And that's what the retailer can do. And I think, to take it back even further, it's a reflection of like how the cigar smoking society has changed. My dad was not that guy. My dad would want to walk in and buy the same cigar every time at the same price. If you changed it by 5 cents, he's going to ask you why. And if he pays you in cash, he'd like a nice deal. And that was him. Yep. And that was, I think, cigar smokers in, the 80s and 70s and 90s even per se. They were really, really brand loyal. They loved to smoke. They had no problem smoking the same thing over and over again. Now I think the consumer today is much more picky. I think they want much more variety. I think they want much more story and nuance. And all of that is all of this is maybe a reflection of the change in consumer buying behavior. That's my thought. I don't know. Could be totally wrong.
Yeah, consumers are so picky. I was at an event once with Saka, and he was had a new cigar. I don't know what it was. A couple years ago, he was there with his broker selling the cigar. That cigar, and someone came up to him, hey, what do you got new coming out? And he's like, this is what's new, and like they didn't even buy it. Like that's the new thing. Mm-hmm. And they want to know what do you got new coming out? And he's like, God damn it. It's like it just,
what's new after that?
Yeah, I know. And he's like, why don't you buy this one first? But it's the limited edition now. It's like that those two words don't even mean anything anymore. Period. They mean nothing, because every manufacturer comes out with a limited edition now. Big, small, seems like every couple months. This is our limited edition, this. And then a couple months later, this is our limited edition, this. So you can open up a store, brick and mortar, with just limited editions, not even carry anything else. Yeah. and you would always have a packed store.
It's it's that Instagram, TikTok type of mentality where it's quick. What's new? Like you said, Kevin, if you got somebody asking Steve Sacco what's new as he's talking about the new product, it was like when I came out with my first cigar, it was like after 2 months, like, hey, what's new? I'm like, that's still new, really? And then I think to your point, Ian, it's very true. It's if you go to a retailer, there's to be able to say this is new, it's limited edition, get it while it's lasts. That's an easy sell versus trying to sway someone who's a traditional cigar Padron, Fuente, so on and so forth, to get them to try something. Oh, do you like Nicaraguan tobacco? You're going to love this. Do you like Dominican tobacco?
Right.
You're going to love this as a new brand. It's easier to say that's limited, that's new. Only those boxes, once they're gone. And people hear that and they want to take it. I'll buy a box to smoke. I'll buy a box to keep since it's going to be gone.
Yeah.
And it's a very quick, easy sell at the shop versus getting into a dialogue.
Yeah. And I think also what's contributing on the other side of this to support all this is that the really large brands they've been very aggressive with their retailer deals. And and for good reason. And they're doing a smart thing there. These really large brands. Yeah, these really large brands are doing that. And, I get it. If I was a retailer, brick and mortar retailer, and I sell, just to give it, not that they're doing it, but just say if I sold hundreds of boxes of Oliva Serie B or whatever it be, and that company were to solicit me and say, hey, look, we're going to make you deals that are going to be super beneficial to you because you sell those cigars, you blow through them. Why wouldn't you allocate more of your capital towards the bigger brands? And I'm starting to see that now. I think that's happening a lot. And retailers are starting to spend more money with those larger companies. There's a little bit of safety there. There's also more margin there. And it makes sense. So the more money they spend with the larger brands, the less money it is for the boutique brands. And maybe at that point, it makes sense just to rotate the boutiques to catch the what's news and stick to the mainstays.
Tough to keep up with a buy two, get one, buy three, get one.
And then that's it. And then spend 10,000 and we'll give you 10,000 in swag. Hats, shirts, humidors, everything else. It's like I said, it's tough. It's tough to keep up with that. And then the certain big brands that will hold off, because everybody always wants their most popular. Like, well, you can't have the most popular unless you have, 6 facings, 10 facings, 12 facings. You got to buy this. You can't just have our premiums that everybody wants. You got to buy everything, so, but yeah, it's crazy. We're going to back up for a second. And then, when you told your wife she's supportive, skeptical about starting a cigar company, how did you start? How did you know where to go? Did you ask your local brick and mortars? Did you have friends? How did you know which factory to go to?
Yeah. So, I relied on brick and mortar friends, particularly Micah Johnson at Cigars Limited. I told him I thought I wanted to do this, and he goes, yeah, I kind of want to do it too. And I was like, okay, well, let's go figure out what to do. And so we met up with a few companies early on. We did some remote blending with some of these bigger companies. And after a while, after about a year or so, maybe of doing that, I decided that it wasn't really going to be as good of a product until we got down there to Nicaragua or DR or wherever we were going to go to make cigars, to actually meet the factories in person and actually figure out how this process is going to work. So I started going down to Nicaragua because at that time it was where all the cigars I liked were coming out of. And so that's why I chose Nicaragua. Today, I don't know if I would have chosen Nicaragua given some of the things going on today. Honduras, there's some great small companies there. Dominican Republic, same thing. But for my situation, I started going down to Nicaragua and we started making cigars with a gentleman named Gonzalo Fuentes down there, just based on talking to people and based on just referrals. And it was basically just, who do you know? And can you make a cigar somewhere, and do they spend time with you, and do they want you to be successful? And everything kind of worked that way, whether it was where to print cigar bands or where to make the boxes. There's all these little things that you come along to, and you're like, well, I have no idea where to print this, or I have no idea where to make. I don't know how much it costs. I don't know anything about it. So all that was a couple years of figuring it out, trying to figure out where to do all those things, and a lot of people helped along the way. Like a lot of referrals, a lot of guidance. There's a lot of people that were really nice and helping along the way.
Yeah, that's great.
So tell us about that first trip to the factory. Like, you'd never been, and there you are. You show up in Nicaragua. It's not California by any means. What was like that first day, that introduction? What was that like?
Well, at that time, Gonzalo was making cigars, a very small amount of cigars out of a very, very small house in the middle of Esteli. And to say it was a factory, it's not. That's an overstatement. But he was making really good cigars for us, and we really liked a couple blends. And it's hard to relate back then because of what we have available to us today over time, and I can't imagine what we were doing back then to try to do that. But it was very disheartening. I wanted to use a lot of tobacco that I had absolutely no access to. I wanted to use a lot of broadleaf because I liked a lot of broadleaf cigars. I had no access to broadleaf. I thought, I really wanted to use some types of Honduran tobacco. I had no access to that. So you kind of just work with what you're given, and you try to make the best cigar you can with the limited amount of leaf that you've got access to. I've spent a lot of time, in Nicaragua, but I still learn something all the time, and I still feel like I still feel like there's so much more to learn. Some things I probably never will unless I'm actually an owner of a factory and actually dealing with the day-to-day of running a factory. But it's just not in the cards for me. I think having a brand and making what we're making today is to actually also own a factory. I think that would do a disservice. I think we'd make worse products if I had a factory. It would be a nightmare.
Yeah, or you'd have to be at the. There's only so much you can learn. In a week, even if you're there 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 3 or 4 times a year, there's just no way that you can possibly learn, anything, So,
yeah.
It's so you said you eventually switched factories, from Gonzalez.
Yes. Yeah. So I happened to be really fortunate, and I ran into a guy named Gus Cura. He's with the Oliva Tobacco Company, and he was real kind to me. He was rightly skeptical in the very beginning, and over time we became very, very close friends. He's been probably one of my biggest mentors in terms of tobacco, and he comes from the growing and the fermenting side of things, which really I think is the best place to start, because you're talking about starting things at the ingredient level. And about, I don't know, it's probably 7 or 8 years ago now, Gus also took over overseeing the Noxa factory in Nicaragua and Esteli. And at that time, when he took over overseeing that factory, that's when I decided to begin making cigars at Noxa. And then after a bit, I transitioned everything over to Noxa. And so we've been with Noxa all this time, and it's been a huge godsend because, like I said, the level of tobacco inventory that Oliva Tobacco has access to, the level of knowledge from people like Gus, the level of support from the Oliva Tobacco family. These are all huge, tremendous things that have allowed me to make the cigars I can make today. I wouldn't be able to make these cigars at all without that. It's really standing on the shoulders of giants, as they say. You know.
Yeah, especially if you have a tobacco you want to work with, and you have a factory that says, you know, oh, I can't get that, with someone in a leave, like, let me see if I can get that, you know, because there's, I mean, obviously the Leva, I mean, that they would know where it's at, you know, they would probably know someone like, hey, I know someone that's got an extra bale of this, you know, that's, you know, and then, so that's definitely a great in. Noxa, was it Raul Disla? Is he the blender over there? Okay. And,
So Raul came on board at Noxa. Gus hired Raul, and he's been the production manager the entire time. Raul's got a tremendous pedigree in cigars, and what's really, I think, unusual, and it says a lot about Oliva and their foresight. Raul's not from Nicaragua; he's a Dominican guy.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So Raul is from the DR. He's Dominican. He's not Cuban, also. And so for him to be running such a large operation says a lot about their trust in his skill set. And he's one of those rare guys that, you know, when he was 14 years old, he was literally working in the tobacco fields of the DR. And then he became a roller. He was in the fields. He was there in also the bulking. So he worked in what they call the pre-industry. And then he went all along through becoming a roller and going up the entire scheme. And I kind of equate that in today's terms as somebody that, you know, started as a janitor, you know, when they're 14 years old at a company. And then when they're 40-something years old, they're now the president of the company. That's Raul, you know, and it's irreplaceable for somebody to know all of those parts of the cigar business. And so that allows him to be able to know every single thing about what's happening in the factory, down to even going out and buying tobacco in other countries. He literally has all of the knowledge in order to oversee such an operation. And so he is basically our production manager through Noxa, and very, very fortunate that he's the guy in charge. It's a big reason why we're able to make the cigars that we can make. And also he has a very distinct profile too, because he's a Dominican guy making cigars in Nicaragua. So he has a balance to, you know, all those flavor profiles that you necessarily get from the DR, and also the tobacco that you use in Nicaragua. His brother Esteban was the production manager at Roma Craft, and that's his older brother, younger brother, older brother.
I didn't know that they were related.
No.
And I mean, when you hear these last names, I mean, like yeah, what are the odds they're related? I mean, you know, distant cousins or whatever. But yeah, no, I didn't know that they were brothers.
Yeah, very close. They have like they have coffee today. Like every day they have coffee in the morning, like 4 o'clock in the morning, every day.
Yeah.
And they have coffee together at lunch. They're extremely close. And his brother, I mean, his brother is like the kindest soul on earth. He's just he's a true gentleman. Just a gentle soul. Can blend the hell out of cigars too.
And he's got to deal with Skip, you know. And nobody tell Skip I said that. Stop telling Skip I badmouth. You know, Skip and I we're back again. So yeah, got to deal with Skip. You know, so that's you know, but yeah, and that's got, you know, with Raul. I mean, just everybody under him, you know, just got to, you know, it like you said, it's like the janitor that made his way all the way up to the president of the company. You know, they know, you know, if Raul asked you to do something, he's not going to ask you to do something that he doesn't think can be done, because he's done it. You know, he's been out there in the fields. He's been rolling. He's done everything else. You know, so has he tried to teach you? I mean, are you doing any blending on your own? Any rolling? Anything?
Yeah, absolutely. We blend all of our own cigars. Raul and I basically have the blenders arguments. He always wants to use certain things, and I don't like certain things. And at the end of the day, I'm paying, so I win. But he has a very unique profile, and I trust him. He's one of maybe 5 guys that when I blend something, they smoke it, other people smoke it, but about 5 people I really trust their palate. And if any one of those 5 people go, this is a shit cigar, then I go, yeah, all right, something's really not right. And but yeah, I work really closely with Raul, and yeah, his level of detail. Matter of fact, we have a Desvalito that's the Diesla blend, and that's his blend entirely. So I didn't blend that at all, but that's his blend. And there's a lot of projects that we're working on that I'm trying to take things that I blended and basically going to him and saying, hey, if you were to make this, what would you change about it to make it more your profile? And we'll release those things as Diesla blended cigars.
But there are a few guys out there, that and I've heard that have Raul blended cigars. It's just like, hey, we trust your palate. I think Saka's got one of them, but yeah, it's just like just blend a cigar, and then we're not going to change it. And they're always fantastic cigars. And I've always heard the rumblings, why doesn't he just open up his own company, make his own cigars? And I'll say, because he's smart. He's smart. He doesn't want to lose money. So
he's got a good gig.
He's got a great gig. So then we'll get to the name Dapper Cigars. So was that a name that you chose at the beginning? Was that something? Some people will choose a name and then go with the whole line of cigars on top of after that. But where did the name come up in the?
Well, yeah, I didn't have a Cuban last name, so I couldn't name the company after like the legacy of my grandfather. So that was out. So I couldn't really figure out what to call the cigar company. And one night I'd just done the Kubo bands, the original bands, which I'd spent a lot of time and effort and money and trying to create something that I thought was really nostalgic and cool looking. And I was sitting out there smoking a cigar with my neighbor at the time on a patio. He was like a barber kind of guy that was into retro haircuts, and he was very much into nostalgic looking stuff, shaves and the whole bit. And he looked at the band and said, "That's a dapper looking cigar." And I go, "Perfect, that's it, done. We can call it."
That was it.
That's it. So I said, "We're in," and then I also kind of thought about it, and I was like, "Okay, well, it's Dapper, right before another big company." So I thought, if you're like on a website and you're looking for this one company, you'll probably see our company in there. And so I thought about it from that perspective, and I don't know if that's worked at all, but it was certainly an idea. So I just kind of went with it, and I always knew I wanted to have brands. To me, it didn't feel like I needed to focus so much on the company name, but I needed to focus more on the individual cigars, because I've always had a lot of ideas about what themes or what things I would like to name cigars. And so if you have just like your last name as the brand, you're kind of just doing that. Everything that you have is named, I mean, not to say it's a bad gig. Trust me, I'd love to have Padron as my last name or something. Or Fuente, that'd be great, but yeah, so I kind of didn't pay too much attention to the idea of what the brand of the company would be called, and more I was kind of focused on what could we do with the individual products and lines, and what could we name them, and where could we go with that.
Yeah, there was that one company. I don't know if they're still around. It was years ago, but the guy's last name was Puente with a P. And I remember, and I don't know ever. I'm sure Fuente would have an issue with that, But when it comes down to trademarks, I don't know. But that's a little,
Right. I think that's like bridge.
Yeah,
it's bridge in Spanish. So yeah. I don't know. There's a lot of Spanish brands, like a lot of Spanish last name brands, and I think the danger of those is that they're just so familiar, right? There's a lot of them that are real close, and maybe it might be hard to distinguish things,
That's it. That's why they're always fighting. You
There's
always,
that one brand, Kevin. The guy changed his last name because the original name was Articus.
Yeah, Arctica. Yeah.
You might have a little problem with that Articus. Sounds a
Yeah.
lot like Particus, but
yeah. But that's it. The names that stick out are nowadays are the brands that don't have the Spanish last names. People want a Dapper, like, oh, what is that? A Stogie Road, so
Right.
yeah, but then you get some of the legacy guys that, when they see that Spanish last name and that big fancy ornate band, that's what they go for. Now you are known for having some beautiful bands. I think I have,
I smoked a couple of your cigars. I've smoked that one.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then, it's beautiful bands. How much of an issue was that? Because we just released our first cigar, and my band sucks. On paper, it looked good. When a guy sends you a print, you're looking at it. That band is 6 inches wide, 4 inches tall on your computer. Like, yeah, let's cram in more stuff.
Yeah.
and then it was printed.
Stuff.
Yeah.
That's hard. It's hard to do that. I don't, we sit here and spend a lot of money on our printables, and we go through pretty extreme lengths to print what I think are just beautiful bands. But ironically, all the people that I kind of admired, that all the boutique cigar companies that I kind of admired, they didn't necessarily have very complicated bands at all. So maybe I didn't take anything. Probably should have learned that lesson. You could save a lot of money by printing less complex bands.
Yeah, the same brown band on every cigar. Is that what you're talking? I know what you're talking about.
Oh,
yeah. It's because now you got to buy the whole box so you can tell which one you're smoking. So
absolutely. Yeah. So we go through. We have a designer. His name is Dan Greta. He designs everything from our warranty seals to our bands. And I think the only excuse or justification I can give as to why we spend so much or why the bands are nice is because I want them to be that way. I don't know if they make a whole lot of business sense in terms of, should you do that if you're starting out making cigars? No, I think probably just focus on making great cigars and building the sales process instead of worrying about printing your bands in Holland and all that stuff. But we go through a lot. Most of the printables that you see that are on the band side are printed in Holland at Vrijdag, and they use a gold powder treatment to get the gold that way, and their printing there is pretty. It's at another level. The detail that you can get on the band is very, very detailed. They're probably one of the best people in the world that do that. But we also print less complicated things down in Miami at Action Label. They do a great job. We print warranty seals with them. We print, some bands for some things, or private labels we'll do with them. And we also print things at Cigar Rings and the DR or Nicaragua. So we have about 3 or 4 companies that we use just to print various items on the boxes and whatnot. But yeah, I appreciate people noticing it. Sometimes there's I would say the bad side to doing things like we've done is that one thing is the details are so small on cigars sometimes on the bands that guys that are older can't read the lettering. And so you quickly realize that when you go out to an event, an old guy looks at it and he's like, I can't see a damn thing. And you're like, oh, well, we outthought that one. Maybe we should have just put the name in a massive gold lettering, and that would be better for that customer. And we get that a lot. So, sometimes we've kind of outthought or outdone it to our own detriment,
Now at the very beginning, was it, some of these things that you probably didn't realize, when you were going, I want to have a cigar made, it's like bands, no bands. It was boxes. You want to put them in boxes? What kind of boxes do you want? Warranty seals.
Right.
And then you're like, what the hell's a warranty seal? Why do I need a warranty
Yeah.
seal? And it's just got to be, what was that? Was that first trip you get back home? Was that like a little like disheartening? You're like, God, there's like a ton of stuff I didn't know.
Yeah, I mean, part of me, like with all the detail of all that stuff, was I figured the way I justified spending the money on it was if my kids ever look back on what I did and look back on the products, I want them to be like, wow, those were really cool. Dad never made it, but you know, damn it, he had good taste. Those products look great.
That's it. You're still promising your wife 10 years later we're going to turn a profit this year. We're gonna make money this year. I promise.
We're turning the corner this year.
Yeah. Oh my God. So you what was that? What was the first cigar? You know, we're going to get into all the brands and all the blends here shortly.
Yeah.
What was, you said it was the Kubo was the first one?
Yeah, we did the Kubo Claro and the Kubo Maduro, and it was a light blue baby blue blend. It was a Connecticut shade cigar. We did the light blue because that was like, at that time, it was kind of cool, and we thought nobody had a light blue baby blue cigar, and it's like having a baby boy kind of thing. And then that next year, like every cigar had baby blue on it. So it was like, well, kind of didn't see that one coming. But we did that. It's Connecticut shade, real medium, light bodied cigar. We did a San Andreas version of that as well. Gonzalo made those. We made very limited, very small amounts of them. We made like 5,000 cigars at a time. And when you're talking about 4 different sizes, like how much are you making of each size? You know, you're making 2,000 Toro, you're making 1,000, 1,500 Robusto, and you're doing 1,500 Gordo or whatever it was. And we did those, and we did a cabinet box because that was the only box that I could really figure out to do a cabinet hinge box. I remember I couldn't figure out how they did burns on the boxes. I couldn't figure out like how do they put those intricate burns on the sides and the tops of the box. And I was searching everywhere, and I think I was looking up something in the U.S. and this company called Schwertel made these box burns, and they were like these massive. It was like a massive heating element with a bronze plate on the end that you would put the plate on. You screw the plate on, and then you put it in a drill press, and you'd burn it. And I was like, oh crap! All right, I got to buy this thing and somehow get it down to Nicaragua. So I bought this massive Schwertel thing. It was huge bronze plates. I spent like a stupid amount of money on the thing. I flew it down to Nicaragua, and my buddy's leaving with me, and I'm like, hey, could you put this thing in your bag? He's like, oh yeah, no problem. So he puts this thing in his luggage. You know, talk about setting off metal detectors. Yeah. So we're going into the airport, and you know they're looking at this thing in security, and they're trying to figure out what is this thing. And I'm like, I swear to you, this is a device you use to burn, you know, imprints in the cigar boxes. And finally, they let us through all this stuff. And I remember telling the story to Steve Saka years later, and he goes, Schwertel. He goes, oh yeah. He goes, I know those guys. We actually bought the Liga Privada box burns for him at the time. So I was like, oh, so I wasn't the only idiot that went through that process.
You know, so it reminds me of a story. Jessica and I were coming back. I don't know where we were at, and we're going through security. And we'd done some antique shopping, and it goes through the X-ray machine. Some dude grabs my bag, instantly holds it up. Whose bag is this? And I go, it's a jar of pocket watches. You know, and it was just a jar, and it had like 50 broken pocket watches. Can't even imagine what this thing looks like going through the X-ray scan.
Oh, mason jar.
Yeah, it was a big mason jar, and he pulls it out, and they're looking at it, and I'm like, yeah, I swear it's just a jar of
we were coming back from Kentucky.
Yeah, just a jar of pocket watches is all it was.
Jar of pocket watches.
I was either Kentucky or Tennessee.
Yeah, they kind of freaked out. So I can't imagine this big bronze plate, just this massive. Because you can't even say it's just a block on the X-ray. Just this block.
It's a massive bronze block, but the thing that you hook into the drill press looks like a bomb. It just looks like something insidious, and it's like when you see it like on an X-ray, I'm sure they're just like, oh my God, code red, we've got something here, fellas. You know, this is what we train for.
Yeah, I can't even imagine what that costs because I have, cause I had another business in the past, and I bought like a little bronze or like a little burning thing, but it was only maybe 3 inches wide. Same thing, you put it in a drill press, you get it hot, and that was like hundreds of dollars for this tiny little thing. So you've got this big, oh god,
Yeah, I remember because the heating element was probably like $800, and then the bronze plates at the end, you had to do each one, right? So you had to do one for the top of the box, you had to do one for the side of the box, and then you had to do one for the front of the box. And mind you, like you have to have the different sizes: Robusto, Toro, Gordo. And so then we were like, oh shit, how do we like get this thing down to where we don't have to like use like a different one for every box? So we, you would eliminate some of the, we don't need to say Robusto on the side, do we? Yeah, we do. All right. They got like, I don't know, 24 bronze plates in a bag, and we got popped going into Nicaragua too. It's the same ordeal, right? Their security scanners like, what the fuck is this, And so it was, I think they even popped us for like some sort of extortion fee going into the airport too. It was like, oh, this is a commercial device. Like, yeah. And my buddy, I remember he got popped going to Nicaragua and they said, well, this is a commercial thing. So we're going to have to charge you some sort of import fee. And he goes, no. He said he was like a hobbyist, like a hobby woodworker or something in Spanish. It was the most bullshit thing ever. And I was going, oh my God, they're going to throw us in jail for this. And he got out. They let him out. I think they were just so frustrated with trying to figure out what the device was. They couldn't appropriately categorize the cost of it,
Yeah, and they're always trying to pop you for the fees. I remember Omar DeFrias telling the story about going to a wedding outside the country. I forget where he was going, but he brought like, I don't know, 100, 150 cigars of his own cigars, and they tried to, it was like 10 grand, worth. And he's like, he goes, there's not $10,000. They actually went online and looked up the retail value of like every single cigar. And it was, then luckily there was a couple of ladies in the back and he sweet talked them and ended up being like $100 or something. It's just, but yeah, I think that's how they make some of their money. It's just,
I got that when I shipped cigar bands down.
Oh, you got popped for that?
It was it's a paper tax, and they're like, we need the invoice on what you paid for this, and I think it was like 100% tax on what it was.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah.
Wow.
Real fast, we need to have this question.
Okay, Manny has it. Do you watch Oak Island or Skinwalker Ranch?
No, I've heard of Skinwalker Ranch, but I haven't heard of Oak Island. I'm assuming it's along the conspiracy theory line.
Yeah, same thing. Digging for treasure.
Which I'm totally about. Okay.
Seventh season. They haven't found anything yet.
Yeah, they never find anything. So never. The Skinwalker we're hooked on, but Manny, damn it, he's gonna find a maker that watches this. I got to start putting the word out, and then have that guy on the show, and then it'll just be a whole show, on Oak Island and Skinwalker Ranch.
Wouldn't the maker be Brad Reith, who probably watches?
Yeah, probably Brad Reith is probably
aliens and stuff.
So you blended. You've got all these thousands of cigars. They show up at your house. You're excited. I am a cigar maker now. I am a god among men.
Yeah.
What next? How do you get these into the people's mouths?
If I started with that level of enthusiasm, I probably would be further along today. But I thought about it like as in, oh shit, I just spent whatever. I got to sell these things. I don't think I'm going to smoke through them as fast as you always tell people, you're like, if nobody buys them, I'll smoke them. And then you're like, that's a dumb idea. Like, I got to sell some of these. Like, I can't even store all this stuff. So I get on the road and, basically start calling cigar shops in Northern California. And this is a true story. It's kind of funny. I think about it all the time. The very first town north of Fresno is Merced. And there's a small cigar shop in Merced called Cigar Monkey, and it's owned by Mike and Janet Siegel. Mike just passed away a couple years. Great guy. And I loaded up a cooler in the back of my trunk. I put a bunch of cigar boxes. I only had 2 blends to sell, or I think I only had 1 blend to sell at the time. And I go to Cigar Monkey. I sit down. I talk with Mike. He's very nice. And he looks at me and he smokes a cigar and he smiles. He's like, "Do you have any cigars on you I can buy?" And I'm like, on me? Like, I didn't think I was going to actually sell any cigars, like, out of my samples, right? I thought I was just going to, like, I'd ship it when I get back home kind of thing. I go, "Well, no." He goes, "Well, I'll take, it's like $600 worth of cigars, $800 worth of cigars." I was like, oh my God. I remember walking out of that meeting and just going, "This is too easy. This is way too easy." like, that's it, fellas. Done, right?
You call it quit your day job. "Boss, I quit. I'm out."
Yeah. I didn't sell another stinking cigar all week.
Oh my God.
I went to probably 15 stores. I went through so many meetings. I didn't sell another box that entire stinking week. That was the only sales I ever made, was Mike. I'll never forget that. And I just remember the pure joy and elation of the first sale and the pure misery on the drive home on Friday night, because I'm like, how do I spin this to my wife? Like, what is the appropriate story that I can relay that will convince her that this is worth continuing down the road for?
Oh my God. That's I can't even imagine. But that's stories that we hear all the time. So at that time, were you still are you still doing the tech thing, or have you made the full-time jump over to cigars yet?
No, not yet. It takes a lot of time, but I have a good tech gig, and I've got a good company with that, and I haven't made that complete jump, and hopefully one of these days I will. What I've kind of done is, and I get a lot. Yeah, people are mixed on it. I've been in some interviews with really large guys in the industry and stuff, and they're like, "Well, you just got to jump into it full. You got to give it 150% and all that stuff." And I get that, and I understand. I get that mentality, but the way that I've done it personally is that I've used my stable and my profitable and my career in tech to really allow me to not have to sweat the cigar stuff, in the sense that it's allowed me to not compromise a lot on the cigar side. I feel like if I was in that other category, that bucket, I maybe would be making decisions sometimes that wouldn't be the best for what I wanted to have in a cigar company. And what it's allowed me to do is it's allowed me to really not compromise a lot on things in terms of cigars, and not have to worry about things in terms of, I'll be honest with you, how many cigars, do you have to sell in order to support a family, or to pay your bills and all those sorts of things. The number is going to be quite high, I think, no matter how anybody imagines it. Unless I'm selling $30 cigars in volume, and hey, all day long, buddy. Let's go with that route. But
people ask me that all the time. I'm sure, Kerr, they ask you that. When are you going to make the jump? And I tell people, I said, it's tough to give up that stability. I got a day job, mechanic. I make crazy money for what I do, and it's just like the cigars got to pick up that. So the cigars you do decent on, but now it's like you got to pick up another, $80, $90, $100,000 a year plus in profit, just to put away, and it's tough. You remember 2 years ago talking to my accountant about that. I'm like, hey, you see my numbers. Could I do this, like, media and cigar things full time? And he's like, you can, but how much do you like stuff? And I go, I love stuff. And he goes, you can't buy stuff anymore. I'm like, but I like stuff, so Yeah, don't quit.
Well,
don't quit the day job is basically what he told me.
That's very true. And I mean, and on my side of the things, it's like being able to, if I were to pursue it 100% and full time, one, our volume requirements would go up significantly. Two, in order to grow, in order to grow, and in order to keep our inventory levels and do all those things, I would have to take money. I would have to borrow money from a bank, or I would have to borrow money, or I would have to bring in other investors and stuff. And I'm a little selfish in that. This has been my baby. Not to say that I don't want, outside input, or I don't want any of those things. But right now, I don't want to compromise. I want to get it to as far as I can possibly do it, and take it as far as I can with my own money. And that's been very expensive. It's been the most expensive thing in my life. I've never, done anything that's required so much capital investment as trying to build a cigar brand. And I think any cigar brand owner out there will say the same thing. If anybody that's gone out there and try to build any sort of brand of cigars knows how extremely, extremely capital intensive it is, to build inventory, to build products, to buy, everything from bands to boxes to this, all these things that you're having to invest in so that you can be competitive and sell cigars in a competitive market is very capital intensive. And so by me doing my tech stuff, it allows me to be able to be the banker to myself and say, hey, look, and I feel like I'll also be very responsible with the money because it's my money. Like I have that in the back of my mind. I'm always thinking, all right, this is take the money seriously, because this is a lot of money. Like, this is money that you could send your kids to college with. This is money that you can, do all these other things with. So that's been my mentality.
And people don't realize, people say it I hear that all the time. Bands. Oh yeah. If you're buying enough bands, you're probably getting those for, a nickel a piece, 10 cents a piece, 15 cents a piece. Like, yeah. What's 15 cents times 250,000 bands? Add that number up, and then somewhere along that journey, you got to buy that same number, so all that money coming in, so you're stockpiling some of that because you got to buy that shit again.
You talk about taking that leap, right? Into full time. I mean, and to your pointing is, people don't realize is sometimes, even if you don't take that leap, unfortunately, if you're not prepared, sometimes the worst thing that can happen to you is growth. Because if you don't have the capital, or if you are going in full time and you're like, okay, well, I got to make this much money to replace my income. You're like, oh my gosh, we're killing it. Oh, but we need more cigars. So where's that money going to come from? Right. So it's those plateaus sometimes last longer, just because if you were to take another spike and experience that growth, it could break you.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest, illusion in the cigar industry is that we're all just somehow raking in piles of money. That, we go back to our we drive home in our Bentleys and sip our French wine and just laugh at how much money we're shoveling in. And the reality of it, I think, is that it's so far from the truth, it's not even funny. And I think anybody I think any brand, if you look at any even successful brand that you see that's out there on the boutique scale, I would be very surprised if anybody was shoveling in the amount of money that people perceive that they're shoveling in. There may be one or two, I don't know, but I think for the majority of us, it's a tough business. It's very, very difficult. It requires a lot of capital. It requires a lot of dedication to it. It's a tough market, and it requires a lot of continual investment for a number of years before you turn that road to where you're actually clipping enough to where you're able to take a reasonable salary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you look at. I think it's probably been about 2 years, and Saka was doing an interview, and in Dunbarton. I mean, that's a big company. It's still a boutique company. That's still a big company. Everything. You'd think he was raking it in, and I think he said like it was 2020 his salary took a year. He was able to take 80 grand, on a salary, and I'm like, what? Like 80 grand, and you're on the road 300 days a year. You're doing all of this work, and then that's what you paid yourself. Get out of here,
I have a lot of great Saka stories. I was down in Nicaragua a long time ago with him when he started making cigars at Noxa. He started to make the Mi Querida there. And so we spent a lot of time together. And Saka's been, he's a wealth of knowledge. And, the way I look at Saka is, not the sidebar, but this is a guy that, essentially was a head of marketing for one of the largest cigar companies on earth with JR Cigar on the retail side. And then he became the president of one of the largest cigar companies on earth, Drew Estate. This is a guy that's, he's won a lot of times. Most of us are lucky if we win once in the cigar business, right? And this is a guy that's won twice before. And won to a very high extent. So we were sitting down. So I looked at him in that perspective, like this guy, if anybody's got the roadmap, this guy's got the roadmap. He's got the retail roadmap and he's got the manufacturing roadmap. So whatever he says, pay real close attention to what he's saying. And I remember sitting down with him one night and he had talked about how much he had made that year. And he told me, and I'm not going to tell you the number, whatever, but I was shocked, but it also he was also candid and he was building Dunbarton. Like he was building, this is before he had a national sales manager. This was just him. I mean, he was building it and he didn't need to tell me that. He could have just left the perception. But he did. And it gave me a whole lot of confidence to go, okay, I'm all right. Like I'm not crushing it. If he told me some crazy crushing number, I'd be like, oh, geez, I got to start over on this guy here, right? This is going to be bad. But he was very honest with me. And I thought, oh, man, we literally sat there and talked about margins and talked about, what I should be charging, what I should be doing. And there's been a couple big guys that have huge cigar companies that have, it's been nice to be able to have those candid conversations with them about how difficult it is. It's not all what people perceive from the outside. It is a difficult business, just like all businesses. It's difficult. It takes a long ramp.
It does. And people, you talked about, having to get investors, Karen, we've talked about this before. Your buddy was asking you about it. How do you get an investor and tell him he's never getting his money back ever? Yep. Karen, wasn't your buddy asking to invest in your company or
somebody? Well, we were talking about that and I was like, you're in business. How do I explain to you that you're going to invest X amount of money and you'll have some good cigars to smoke, but the return on your investment is when you're on your deathbed, you'll receive total consciousness.
Yeah. That's it.
Well, and I've also seen a lot. I've seen over the years a lot of guys that have gone into the industry hot and heavy with heavy investors in the beginning, and all of them are not here. Not all of them, but many of them are not here. Yeah. And a few of them have ended in badness. Have ended in where investors felt like they were burned. And I saw that, kind of going up through it. And I thought, man, I don't know if I could live with myself. I mean, I get it that any investor that goes into a high risk business understands the risk and they understand what they're getting into. But I just don't know if I have the personal fortitude to tell somebody, hey, look, man, I gave it a go. I lost all your money. I'm sorry.
I think the best investor you're going to find is someone who's going to be an active investor, someone who's going to invest and then also has the passion for it as much as you do and is going to be involved with the whole process.
Right. I agree with you.
Yeah. So let's get into some of your cigars. We want to go over some of the cigars in your portfolio here, and then we'll talk about the names behind the cigar, what they mean, and a little bit of the blends. We talked about the Kubo before. That was the first cigar, and we've got the next one up as the Kubata Crew.
Yeah, so that's actually a brand that Micah Johnson at Cigars Limited he had a cigar that he had as a sweet tipped cigar that he used to actually make out of La Aurora. And after a while, he came to me, and I can't remember what the origin of it was, but he was like, "Hey, do you think you could reblend the cigar for me?" And I was like, it's kind of exciting because we'd never done a sweet tip cigar. And so we, I went down and tried to mimic. Well, it was exciting for a couple of things. It was exciting because we never made a cigar that was originally Dominican origins, and that was sweet tip. And so the way I looked at it was I wanted to make the cigar that kind of reminded me of the Baccarats, like the Connecticut Shade, sweet tip, easygoing cigar. And so I went to Raul and I said, I know this is weird, but what kind of DR tobacco do you got? And we went through a lot of Dominican tobacco, and I found this really, really great Dominican tobacco. Super light, super smooth, super easy to smoke. We put an Ecuadorian shade wrapper on it, sweet tip on it, and that's how the Cubata became the shade.
Oh, right on. And what about the cigar you've mentioned? A couple people in the comment section have mentioned this one, the La Madrina.
Yeah, that's our the godmother or whatever. That's our best-selling cigar, probably because it's of the imagery. We get a lot of people that love the band and the look and whatnot. That cigar originally started with a complex Habano blend, and we use a lot of tobacco. We use Pennsylvania broadleaf. I think that was the first cigar that I ever blended with Pennsylvania broadleaf. Yeah, it's Pennsylvania broadleaf in the filler, and we use a little San Andreas wrapper or San Andreas binder. We use Ecuadorian wrapper. And we use a lot of different tobacco in that, little DR tobacco. And for me, it's a super interesting blend. But to be fair, I think it sells well because it has some imagery and iconography that people relate with, and it really crushes it for us. Then we followed that up years later. I did a shade version. And now the shade version is our best-selling cigar of all the cigars, which I didn't see that one coming at all. But we kind of retweaked the cigar, and I tried to make it a little bit more, a little lighter, a little bit more maybe approachable, and that has since become our best-selling cigar.
What does the name mean, La Madrina?
It means the godmother. I really wanted to do that. Sorry, my ear pods here are going out, but. I really tried to do that cigar because I had seen Las Calaveras at the time. And I really liked the idea of using that Day of the Dead kind of motif. Yeah. And so we had some other names that were not as great and that were more too deathy. And it's funny because we finally worked out the branding. We finally worked out what it should look like. We finally figured out a brand that looked like Day of the Dead, but also was more than just that. It resonated more. And I remember I was like so happy about how it came out because we printed the stuff in Holland and it took like 8 months and we finally got it. And Steve Sacco was actually there when I first boxed that cigar. And they brought the package up to us at Knoxhead. I was there. Steve was there. And I'll never forget this. Like, I'm like, this is it. This is going to crush it for us. And Steve looks at me. He's like, yeah, I've never liked cigars that look like too much death stuff. I was like, gosh, this cigar's done. It's over.
Thanks, Steve. So, you said, you said it's a light cigar, and it's your best selling. I find it odd I find it odd that every single person in the cigar industry that you meet, I would say 99%, they all say, I don't like shade. I don't know anybody that smokes shade, and yet every single damn brand owner that we talk to, the shade is the best-selling cigar.
It is, and
we lost your audio.
You just muted yourself. There you go. Oh, hold on a second. Yeah, your sound is. You may have to switch over to if your earbuds died. You may have to switch over your audio in the settings down below.
How's this? Is this a little better?
Oh yeah, we got you now.
Perfect. Yeah, sorry about that. My earbuds crept out. Yeah. So another guy, Nick Perdomo, gave me some very, very astute advice. Nick was really, really, he was really, really helpful and kind, and he. I was talking with him one day, and he's like, "Let me ask you something." He's like, "How many different cigars do you sell lines?" I told him, I don't know, at that time it was like 8 or 6 or 7 or whatever, maybe it was 6. He goes, "Okay." He goes, "And what wrapper? How many of those cigars are a shade wrapper?" I was like, 0 right now. He goes, "Huh?" He goes, "You do understand like 70% of cigar sales are Connecticut shade, right?" I was like, "That's one way to put it. What are you saying?" He goes, "You're an idiot. Like, you should make a shade cigar." He's like, and Nick has the champagne line, which crushes it. I mean, it's a beast. Like, anybody would be lucky to come up with the champagne line and have that product in the portfolio. And so I was like, you know what? He's right. Like, I am an idiot. And so I was like, well, we need a shade cigar because we got rid of the Cuba Claro. What do we make the shade cigar on? Well, it only makes sense that we take our best-selling brand at the time, which is a La Madrina, but it was a darker Habano, and we do a shade on that. And so we did a shade on that. We flipped the presentation on it, and I retweaked the blend a little bit to be a little bit smoother and milder. And then that's now our best-selling cigar by far. It crushes everything. So there you go.
Yeah, people say nobody smokes them, but like you said, everybody is smoking them. Everybody is smoking them. Period.
Best kept secret.
That's it. Yeah, the best kept secret is a shade tobacco, shade cigar.
I mean, to our credit, and maybe to my credit, I feel like that blend really crushed it. And the reason I say that is because typically I don't like shade cigars because they have a bitter bite to it. They have that little
100% agree.
And the way that I've kind of worked that with some blending is I feel like I've crushed that bitterness as much as I possibly could. And the way that I kind of knew that is that Gus, I stay with Gus a lot, and he doesn't smoke shade cigars. He won't smoke them. And so I remember nailing that blend down and going, man, I think I crushed that nasty, bitter taste. And so I brought it back to Gus, and I said, "Hey, Gus, man," he's one of my 5 guys. "Gus, you got to try this. You got to try this cigar." He looks at it, and he just looks at it and goes, "Ian, man, I love you, but I don't smoke shade cigars. I know that, it's probably fine, but I just don't like shade cigars." Like, that's a bit of a bummer. Like, he hates them that much, he won't even smoke them. And so what it was happening was he has his own cigars made for him down there in a little tray, and they're really wonderful. And he gets these cigars, and I think he gets them from AJ. So it's basically a blend that AJ's father makes for himself, Ishmael, and he always steals a bundle every time Ishmael gives it to him. And those fucking cigars are so good, man. And I was smoking so many of them when I was down there that I was just mowing through them. And I think I'd mowed through all of those cigars. And so I had left that shade cigar still sitting on the table out there from the night before. And he went home at lunch, and he didn't have any of his cigars left. And so he just picked up the one that he said he didn't want to smoke because he really wasn't thinking about it, is what he told me, and he smoked it. So I got home later that night. I got back to his house, and he goes, "Ian," he goes, "I'm going to tell you something." He goes, "What did you use in that shade cigar?" I go, "Huh?" He goes, "No, what did you use?" I go, "Well, I did this, this, and this." And he goes, "God damn, man." He goes, "I can't even taste the pepper in that." I go, "Right?" And so that's how that ended up becoming my validation that, all right, that cigar, if I can get a guy that hates shade wrapper to smoking like that cigar, then I'm on.
That's it. You're golden after that point.
Yeah.
So the next one we got the Deslavito.
Mm-hmm.
So what does the name mean on that one?
So it kind of roughly translates to like those without hope or the underdog sort of thing. I'd always had that brand in my mind because I really liked it. I like kind of cool sounding Spanish names. And like I've always liked, for instance, with Steve's stuff, I always loved Mi Querida. Awesome name. Sober Mesa, amazing name. Like they just flow. There's something about them that they roll off easy. And so I always liked the idea of Desvalito with the underdog theme, and I felt like I was kind of like the underdog, and I felt like I was a little bit written off. So we came up with the branding. We went super in your face, over the top. We put a freaking fighting rooster on. I mean, with this, if you look at the band, there's even like there's a little fighting spike on there, which thank God PETA hasn't found yet or whatever.
I didn't notice that until you just said it. Yeah. Oh my God. There's a fighting spike on that rooster.
Yeah, which there's nothing more, there's nothing more Cuban and Hispanic than fighting cocks, right?
Yeah. Oh my God.
And we blinged it out with gold. We blinged it out by using like royal purple, like almost like a Phoenician royal blue color. It was like kind of like opposites. It was the underdog, those without hope, and then we made this just super blinged out thing. And it took me a long time to figure out a blend that I wanted to put on that cigar, because I felt like I wanted something to taste interesting. So it's different. If this was going to be something I worked so hard on, I wanted it to be really different. So it took a couple years to really get that cigar blend down, but I was really happy with what came out of it. We used a lot of like hybrid stuff. We used US hybrid. It's an awkward blend, but I think it's really interesting, and it's one of our better sellers. And it, the branding and everything, it resonates with a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, it's a medium plus kind of profile cigar. But what I think is really interesting about that cigar is the retro hail. It's got a really unique retro. The hybrid tobaccos in there make it really, really interesting and really appealing. And that again, going back to like what others tell me, like Saka would tell me, he told me something really early on that I've always thought to today. It's like when you're blending cigars, you don't want to blend cigars that take people away from your other lines. You want to blend cigars that take people from other cigars that you don't make.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's really, I agree with that. I think that's really pertinent. Like, the name of the game is to get customers from other companies, to get people that don't try your cigars to try your cigars. So every cigar that we release, I always think about, does this fight with anything that we make? Is it in contention with any of the other brands we make? And at that time, it was like, okay, I got to make something that doesn't taste close to anything else we make. And so that was the hard part about blending that cigar,
You say that, now, I've never really thought about that, but there have been cigars from brands that I've tried, and like it does fight with other cigars in their portfolio. It's like, oh, hey, this is just like this cigar, but like a little, so I'm going to stop. I have stopped smoking that cigar to smoke this one, so I don't smoke that one anymore.
Yeah.
And, I've never thought about that. But yeah.
That's interesting.
I never thought about it either. And Steve, again, one of those late nights, too many scotches. Steve goes into philosophy mode. You listen, right?
Always.
Yeah.
Yeah. You just let them go.
Yeah.
And then we got up next the Siempre or Siempre.
Yeah, the Siempre, Spanish for always. That cigar blend came across because Gus had told me. Gus had been very good friends with a guy named Frank Anessa. And Frank Anessa was kind of a titan in the cigar business. He developed a really large brand and sold that eventually. I think it was Consolidated or somehow General or something. And he had really built an empire based on brands like Punch and Hoyt Monterey and Gus knew him well because he sat across from Gus at the Oliva tobacco offices later in his life, later in Frank Inessa's life. And he became good friends with Frank. And Gus had always related to me a lot of Frankisms, right? A lot of things of, how did that guy get to where he was at? What did he do? And one of the things that Frank really believed in was he believed in really easy smoking cigars. And what that meant was, and this is very contrary to what, I was going through. I was a guy that was like, tatuaje. Like at that time, there was nothing easy smoking about some of the tatuaje cigars. They were purposely bold and in your face. And, it was like, just hammer you, right? With flavor, intensity, strength. Well, Frank is the opposite of that thought. And Frank's idea was that if you make easy smoking cigars, you're going to sell more of those cigars. And his kind of catchphrase was, you want to smoke a cigar to where that guy's smoking a cigar, and about halfway through the cigar, he's like looking on his pocket to see if he's got that second one there. That's how smooth and how easy of a cigar you want to make. And so one of the classic combinations that Frank Inessa had done was that he used a lot of Sumatra combined with broadleaf. And Oliva, of course, is growing Sumatra and still grows Sumatra down there in Ecuador. And so that combination of Sumatra broadleaf gives you a really elegant, sweet smoking experience. And so I kind of looked at the challenge of Siempre as how can you take some of these things from some of these classic combination blends that Frank Inessa is famous for and maybe put a little. And so in the old days, it was Honduran tobaccos. And so now it would be Nicaraguan tobaccos. So we still use a little bit of Honduran in that filler, but it's predominantly Nicaraguan in the filler with the Sumatra and broadleaf wrapper binder combination. And so that's how Siempre Sungrown came across. Is basically it's me trying to take an old Frank Inessa blend and make it to my liking.
Perfect. What about a union break on that one? What's the name mean on that one?
Yeah, so we had these small cigars that we brought in, little 4x38s, and we brought them into Cigar Mas Fino in Fresno, California. And the owner of the store goes, "Hey, man, I got these guys that come in and they buy these things, and they're utility workers. They're union utility workers, and they always look for a quick 15-minute cigar that fits in their break." And so I was like, well, I got to make something for that market. And that was the intention, was that, hey, we've got these guys that come in here and buy these little 4x38, little sweet tip 4x38. And so we came up with this line of, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we made something called the Union Break, which meant, it's meant to fit in the Union Break. And so we do it in 3 combos. We do a shade wrapper, a broadleaf wrapper, and a barber pole shade broadleaf wrapper. All Nicaraguan fillers, meant to be like a quick 15-minute long fill, pleasant smoke.
Okay, I was thinking like Union Break, like Union Busting. I thought there was going to be the story from like the 30s, with the cops with their billy clubs. That's where I was going with the Union Break. I'm like, oh, it's going to be a great, it is a great story, but yeah.
No, after hearing that, we may change up the story.
Yeah, we may change it up. And then we talked about it really early in the show. Last but not least, the Major Mike. This is obviously from looking at it's a bundle cigar, sticker, on the outside edge. Yep. Now is this a Cuban sandwich or is this just okay?
Yeah, so it's a mixed fill cigar, which is why it's able to be at the price point. The distinguishing factor is that we've got enough production now that we can take the scraps from all of our premium lines.
That's what, I was going to ask.
Yeah, so we take the scraps from our premium line, we blend that all in the mixed filler blend, and then we use a better wrapper. So we just use a nice tier 1 wrapper. So our shade wrapper looks real nice, and our Habano wrapper looks real nice. And we basically are doing this, to fill in that slot of having an economy premium economy cigar. And we think I personally believe it's one of the best tasting cigars in that price point. and we don't make a lot of money on them at all, but it fills a part in our portfolio, and it gets it's essentially the cigars that somebody like my dad would have smoked, and hopefully we get that sort of an audience for that.
Yeah. And there is that audience, I smoke a Cuban sandwich, several times a week. Sometimes you just, especially if you don't have time, you're maybe only going to get half a cigar, but you're going to smoke it anyways because you don't have something smaller. So you take that Cuban sandwich, even if you leave half the cigar on the table, you're only leaving $1, 50 cents.
Exactly.
It's nothing sucks worse than leaving $8 in your ashtray.
Exactly.
That
we have one other brand, El Borracho, which is the Drunkard. That's our box press cigar.
Oh, we missed that one. The El Borracho that was on my list. We got talking about the La Madrina. So tell us about the La Borracho. What's the name behind that name?
Yeah, so I was drinking a lot, and my wife thought it would be funny to name a cigar the Drunkard, which is also it's a La Loteria card. And so that's how it came across. We didn't have a box press cigar at the time, so I thought, it'd be cool to do a box press cigar. So we do a San Andreas version, we do a broadleaf version, and that's.
The tech guy.
Oops, sorry.
That's okay.
I know. I went to screensaver mode.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've had to click off mine a couple of times. Catch it right there. So box press, and then what's the profile on that one?
Yeah, so it's like medium plus for the San Andreas version. That's a red one, and then the broadleaf one's a little bit more full. We use a good tier 1 Connecticut broadleaf on that, and it's everything you would want from a broadleaf cigar. You get the smoke production, you get the minerality, you get that sweetness that good broadleaf has. And the San Andreas, really great San Andreas wrapper, just like on the Maduro side of things, and classic Nicaraguan profile. So it's all Nicaraguan fillers, but it's from basically predominantly one farm that Oliva has in Esteli is the backbone and the very center of that cigar. And then we use a little bit from one of their other farms, but it's all Nicaraguan in the fillers, and then with the San Andreas wrapper. But they're about medium plus. That's probably it might be our second best selling line.
Now, what are you smoking the most of out of your portfolio?
I smoke a lot of La Madrina Shade. I smoke a lot of Desvalido, and lately, because we're going to start making cigars in other countries, I've been smoking lots and lots of samples from other countries. So DR, I've been spending a lot of time blending and smoking cigars from the DR, and so that's been interesting lately.
All right, so you're going to go to another factory for to blend some more cigars?
Yeah, so we're the goal for us in the next couple of years is to make some cigars out of the Dominican Republic and make some cigars out of Honduras eventually. And so we're starting that process to work out what that's going to look like. And it's been real fun. The Dominican Republic is like I used to like a lot of cigars when I first started that were classic cigars, but I thought that the one thing about Dominican cigars is they were a little bit too sour for me, or they're a little bit too, they just had characteristics that I never really cared for, which is why we did everything in Nicaragua. And so now that we're able to get a lot of leaf from Nicaragua and other parts of the country, and we have access to more varieties, it's been interesting blending because we can get some different flavor elements that we weren't really able to do out of DR, and use a little bit of interest and combine things like Aurora with what I would want to smoke from a DR cigar. So it's been a fun experience.
You were talking about the cigars that you smoke constantly, and one question I had, and I've never asked anybody, any guests that we've had on the show, but as I was typing up my notes, I was smoking a cigar from manufacturer, and it was brutal. Construction issues. I couldn't keep it lit. Started the tunnel, the burn. I was probably halfway through, and I just gave up on the cigar. what happened? I mean, it's a natural product. You're gonna have a cigar that goes bad. What happens when you smoke one of your cigars and something's wrong with it? Do you freak out? Do you go grab another one?
Yeah.
I mean,
I still freak out, but I freak out less. You get kind of immune to, because not only, are the stuff that I'm smoking that I'm kind of QCing, but also if, obviously I get all the complaints eventually that end up downstream, legitimately or non-legitimately or whatever. But, you got to believe that if there's an issue from a retailer, or if there's an issue from a consumer, they're going to let you know in this business. And so I used to be very, very, I used to take a lot of it harshly because nobody wants to see that happen downstream. Over time, I've kind of figured out when to be worried and when not to be worried. There's a certain amount of all of that that's just part of the business and just part of the process of making handmade cigars. But there's also things that you have to be legitimately concerned about. And the thing that keeps me up at night is when you feel that something may be systematically bad. So, if you've got cigars that are underfilled, or if you spot construction problems that are overt, that you're thinking, well, this is not good. If you have maybe some tobacco that's off, that's not good. So I am kind of attuned to that. I'm maybe overly attuned to all that stuff. Even moisture levels in cigars, if cigars ship too wet, that's a huge issue. If they don't ship with enough, humidity, that could be an issue. Just like even Connecticut shade wrappers, like they're so fragile and they're so delicate. And what they go through in the freezing process before you pack and ship, just that freezing process is harsh on thin wrappers. And then there are certain cigars that I know our Siempre Sungrown, because of the way that the tobacco that it uses, it's not going to burn as clean as our Cubo Sumatra. Like our Cubo Sumatra, the way that blend is constructed, the tobacco that it uses, it's such a clean cigar. It will burn right. If I wanted to do a promo shooting cigars and I was worried about the ash looking perfect and the burn line looking perfect and it not doing anything weird, I would just grab that Cubo Sumatra and I would rest assured. I wouldn't grab a Siempre Sungrown. But now the Siempre Sungrown, I know it's got the weird kind of intricacies because I know the tobacco in it's so thick on some parts of it. But the flavor on that is what I'm smoking that for. And I know it's not going to give me that picturesque, perfect burn every time. So I'm okay with that. And maybe we'll tweak things down the line to do that. But yeah, I'm always freaked out about like construction issues, about every cigar maker is. You just have to be, right? Because you're charging people. At the end of the day, people are spending a lot of money for a luxury product, and you want them to feel that they've spent their money wisely.
Yeah, back when I was when I started in the media business doing cigar reviews, and sometimes I look back and I'm like, I was a little too harsh on some cigars. They didn't burn evenly. They didn't have that perfect ash. Now, so someone will send me a picture, of a cigar, and the burn's a little wonky, and they're like, hey, what do you think about this? I'm like, who fucking cares?
Yeah.
It's a cigar. Did it, it'll even itself out. If it doesn't, as long as you're not retouching it up, who cares what the ash looks like? Who cares what the burn line looks like? It is what it is.
I've always felt like if I see a review and the reviewer smoked one cigar, you're like, that's a little unforgiving. I think if you're a real reviewer, you should probably smoke a few, like two or three, and use that as your assessment versus like that one instance for that one cigar. That's a little rough.
It is. That's why.
10 points off, flaky ash.
Yeah, flaky ash.
I'll
10
have to
points.
bust
Yeah,
out busting Jimmy's balls next week when we see him.
That's it. Like, yeah, that's why I love Charlie. He always does 3. 3 cigars. He'll tell you. I had one, wonky burn on this one. The other 2 were fine, or but yeah, it is what it is. So people out there listening, watching tonight, listening to the podcast in the future. Don't harp on the ash. Don't harp on the burn line. It just smoke. Is it smoking good? Then who cares? Who cares what it looks like?
I've had some great tasting cigars there that the ash was dark. It tasted phenomenal. It wasn't all pristine white.
I always look. I mean, those reviews are always hard to take. I mean, I'm much less hurt today just because I've had so many reviews and. I'm used to taking it on the chin a little bit, but they still suck when you get a bad review. But when I look at a low review, I'll look at the parts that are objective, like the construction things, to see if that was the issue. If it's a flavor thing that they don't like, well, can't help you there. But maybe the flavors don't resonate with you. But I always look to see if there's anything in the reviews that are like, it canoed or all of them canoed or something. I look for those things to see if there was any telltale signs of poor construction or just problems with production.
Yeah, I still do a few reviews every now and then. I've got my little sheet that I use, and like 90% of like the score is construction. As long as it was a good cigar, so very little of the score is what I thought of the cigar. Because like I said, it may not be a cigar for me, but maybe a cigar for you or you. So it can still, as long as it didn't fall apart, you're still going to get a decent, a decent score.
Right.
Yeah. So we're actually running a little bit over. So I'm going to ask one last question before we let you go tonight. You finding your work life easier to manage? Your day job, the cigar life, the cigar job and your day job easier now, or is it harder now than
absolute shit show?
Is it?
Yeah, it's absolute shit. My life is rough. I mean, look. Let me just say this. Let me just put it in perspective. Compared to many people on earth, my life is great. I have nothing to complain about. My kids are healthy. All of that's, I don't take any of that for granted. But in terms of like the chaotic nature of the cigar business and balance and work life, there's no such thing for me as a work life balance. I don't know there's any work life balance anymore. I have not even seen that. But yeah, like the chaotic nature of trying to figure out just the cigar business itself is like, you become a bipolar person. You're 1 minute you're cursing, the next minute you're celebrating. It's just a roller coaster of emotion, and I'm not even that emotional of a person. I try to be logical about things, but yeah, the cigar business is it's been it's an interesting ride, and it's just one crazy thing after the other.
It is. I always see people like my Instagram life is amazing. People want to live. You smoke all these cigars. You're building a cigar lounge on your house. Your life is perfect. Come live in the craziness that is my fucking world for a week.
Right.
You'll be glad you just go down to the lounge and buy your cigars and don't think anything more of it.
That's the one thing, of course, that's a really, really common thing that I get when I do events or I go out is, hey, man, it's great because people are passionate about cigars, but they always want to know, what do I need to do to start a cigar company? That's always number one. I'm thinking about starting a cigar. And that's great because I like hearing it in some sense because I am that guy and was that guy. But part of me is like my inner monologue has to kick in and go, do not shit on their dreams. Like, don't be too cynical. Like, just try to keep it cordial and don't tell them all the terrible things. And that's, I have to balance have to like balance their enthusiasm and with perspective, and just somehow temper my advice so that I'm not too negative based on whatever I'm going through at the time in the cigar business. So yeah.
Write down a business plan on a piece of paper, and then when you're done, reread it, take that paper, crumble it up, throw it in the garbage, and then grab a drink and smoke a cigar.
Yeah, that's it.
I always tell people, do you like smoking cigars? If you like smoking cigars and enjoying cigars, then a great way to ruin that is to get in the cigar business.
It is. Charlie Minato said that on our show, that he no longer enjoys smoking cigars. Like when he's like not at work, he doesn't smoke cigars. Like cigars are not fun anymore.
Yeah.
So yeah. You want to make cigars not fun? Start a business. Either media, reviewing cigars, whatever. Get into the business any way you can, and that'll ruin the cigars for you faster than anything.
There was a question.
Oh, okay. What do we got?
The saying the blending goal.
Blending goal. Same profile, same flavor profile across the different sizes, or is it different?
Obviously, as the sizes change for every cigar that we have, it changes the flavor a little bit. And it's just based on the portions of what are in the filler, the wrapper binder filler. Obviously, everything's going to be in the same vein or the same kind of flavor overview. But, every cigar that we have, I would say, there are sizes that I prefer in every line that we have. And it's because there are nuances to that size. The Desvalito, I smoke the Lonsdale. Well, I love the Lonsdale. For whatever reason, that gauge works well. In the La Madrina Shade, I smoke the Toro. 52 gauge. It just mellows perfectly for me. I like that. In every cigar that we make, there's a size that I will go to. El Borrachos now, I smoke the Bellicoso. I like the Bellicoso for whatever reason. It's got everything just kind of works in that gauge and that format for me. So yeah, I mean, even though technically we're using the same leaf across all of the same line, the quantity within each will change ever so slightly, the flavors and profile.
Yeah, I say that all the time. One of my favorite cigars is the Florida Sun-Grown, the FSG by Jeff Borshowitz. It was my number one cigar a couple years ago, and that's like one of them cigars. People love it. They don't like it, and they're like, "Hey, I tried that cigar, and I didn't like it." And I go, "Which size?" Because you got the Toro Robusto, you got the trunk press, and then my favorite in any cigar manufacturer is always the Bellicoso. If you make a Bellicoso, that's what I'm going for every time. So I tell people, if you heard good things about the cigar, try a different size.
Yeah.
Try a different Vitola. You're going to notice that, like you said, from a box press, trunk press to a Bellicoso to a Toro, they're going to taste different. So
that's the fun part about enjoying cigars, is that you get to hunt and figure out which ones resonate with you.
That's it. That's definitely the fun part. So, Kerr, it is. I can't believe it's been 2 hours, 15 minutes. This night has flown by. Any final questions, thoughts for our guest tonight?
I do not. Thank you for your time. I mean, this was fantastic, man. And I've spoken a few of your cigars, and it's been a while. But I remember when Kevin and I were talking, when I looked at the band, I'm like, I smoked that cigar, and it was fantastic.
Well, I appreciate you guys taking the time, and I'm glad that we're finally able to do this. And I'd love to send you guys a little care package. That way you can get reintroduced with all the cigars, and love to know your thoughts, even if you hate them.
Yeah. Oh, perfect. We'll do. And then when you come out with your new lines, different factories, we'll definitely keep our eyes open in the social medias, and we'll reach back out to you, and then we'll get you back on the show and talk about the new cigars.
Yeah. Hey, thank you very much. And by the way, very impressed with how you guys put together the show. I mean, the level of expertise it takes to produce this with all of the video. I mean, that's it's pretty impressive. I'm super shocked at how professional everything is with how you're running the show. So,
Jessica.
Thank you, producer Jessica. That's it in the background. She's getting some props. So thank you very much. We definitely love, whether people like us, don't like us, same with the cigars. We definitely love the feedback. So thank you very much. And you have a good see you soon. Have a good rest of your evening.
Take care.
Thanks, guys.
See ya. All right, everybody start typing in the word cigar for our giveaway tonight. And we'll hear a word from our sponsor, Corona Cigar. All right, it's time for the Tapping Ash and Taking Names giveaway presented by Amendola Family Cigars. All right, let's share our screen here and pick a winner.
It will be hilarious if it all of a sudden just said Oak Island.
Yeah.
Manny typed in Oak Island.
That's great.
Oh God.
Manny, much like Oak Island, you will not win. You will see
yes.
Find nothing at the bottom of this cigar pit.
Yeah, the cigar pit.
Great. Great.
All right. Micah Ramsey. So, yeah, Micah, it's been like a year since Micah.
Is it Micah or is it Mika?
I think she said it was Micah. I think I was pronouncing it Mika at one time. So I think she corrected me and said Micah. So you're going to win. Last week we had Jason Wood from Miami Cigar Company. He sent us a bunch of extra stuff. So Micah, you're going to get a Miami Cigar Company hat, pair of sunglasses. You're going to get a cutter from Illusione Cigars, and you're going to get some cigars from Amendola Family Cigars. You're going to get some cigars from Miami Cigar Company and from Southern Draw Cigars. You're going to get the very last Picadillos. Picadillos pack. So. Nice. So you crushed it on the giveaway tonight. Next week we welcome Boston Jimmy to the show. Each week we've been talking about his climbing Mount Fuji. So we're going to talk about that, and then we're going to talk about some news. We don't get a whole lot of other media guys and gals on the show, so we'll be talking about some things in the cigar world that's going on. Please make sure you're following me, Cigar Prop, producer Jessica, Kerr Viajante of Stogie Road Cigars. Dapper Cigars. All the social media links are in the video description below, the podcast description if you're listening to this. So you can just click right on them, give them a follow on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all those. Also in the show notes down below are all of our partners for making this show happen each and every week. We really can't put on this production without them. So thank you to JC Newman Cigars, CigarMedics, Amendola Cigars. We are the muscle. Jake Wyatt Cigars, Illusione Cigars, deep in flavor, deep in your mind. K by Karen Berger Cigars, Corona Cigar, and of course, Drew Estate and Experience Acid. Ian, we're going to bring you back up here in a second. Kerr, leave everybody with some parting words for tonight.
Life is short. Find something new in the humidor. Ask your tobacconist what is new, what is boutique, and pick out a couple of cigars and enjoy it with a friend.
And pick out a couple of different Vitolas.
And pick out a couple of Vitolas. If the first Vitola doesn't hit you where you like, maybe a different Vitola will.
Always the Bellicoso. All right, everybody.
Bellicoso.
All right, everybody. We'll see you next week.